With the financial success of the Philosopher's Stone, the green light was given to bring us Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Only this time, EA had the next generation of console to tackle on top of what we already had. So, on the 15th of November, 12 days after the movie, the Wizarding World greeted Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets on all platforms, but most specifically, PlayStation 2. This was important to me as it was the first game 13-year-old Tech had bought himself. Most of the time it was waiting until special occasions. So picture it, you stick the game in and you are greeted to this.
If Harry Potter goes back to Hogwarts, he will be in mortal danger.
This was the first and only trailer for the game, and it blew us away. And to be welcomed in with this one trailer the moment you stick the game in, like an old friend you hadn't seen for months, nothing really beats that feeling. Anyway, we start the game off as the flying Ford Anglia touches down at the Burrow, and Mrs. Weasley gives everyone a good rollicking for leaving home on a rescue mission. Except you, because you are Harry frickin' Potter, her favourite son.
It's true, but he shouldn't say it.
So you help the Weasley boys do some chores and denome the garden, which serves as our tutorial. And I have to apologise to the Philosopher's Stone on PlayStation 2 back in the first part of this retrospective, because it used the Chamber of Secrets engine, I kinda sold it short. Not drawing on the fact that while Chamber of Secrets was the initial game, Philosopher's Stone really polished this system up. It's like singing Ocarina's praises and ignoring the tweaks and fixes Majora's Mask did to improve upon that game. Speaking of which, those games in this game are very similar. You equip spells or items to one of 3 main button actions, you lock onto your target, and then you use your items or spells to attack. You run and jump off ledges automatically, and most spells that you learn tie into the dungeon or boss you face. So yeah, there's a lot of similarities to the Zelda games. Now the first spell that we learn is Flipendo, the most famous spell in the Harry Potter franchise.
Isn't that a Varacadabra?
The most famous spell.
Maybe it's Expelliarmus.
The most famous spell.
I mean, to be fair, they replaced that with Stupefy.
Right, that does it. Stupefy. I'll sort you Stupefy. The knockback Jinx is your primary attack. Other spells can and will deal damage, but a lot of the time it's Flipendo that's the finisher. You also use it to stun chocolate frogs that give you your health back. So you test your might and fight off an out-of-control washing machine, chuck some gnomes, and it's time to call it a day. Next is Diagon Alley, and can I just say, big props to EA for getting Stephen Fry involved. This man is such a big British star that never made even a cameo in the movies, but for the UK audience, he is Mr. Harry Potter, narrating every audiobook, bringing the world to life. So getting him to narrate not just this game, but a handful of installments to the series is, without a better word, magical. Just listen.
She took a flower pot off the kitchen mantelpiece and everyone grabbed a handful of flue powder. Harry had never travelled by flue powder before, and when he scattered the powder into the fireplace, he immediately swallowed a lot of hot ash.
Diagon Alley!
So you crash land in Borgin and Burkes, and we are reintroduced to that proper git Draco Malfoy, along with that even properer git Lucius, who is looking to shovel some wares that the Ministry could get a hold of that would embarrass him. So you make your way over to the stand, avoiding Thing from the Addams Family, to read this book and learn the Lumos spell. To which you realise that Malfoy was trying to hide a simple spellbook, one you get from the Hogwarts Library. Either Lumos is one of the most darkest spells in the Wizarding World, or I'm completely missing something. Anyway, Lumos, like a lantern, will light up the area for a short amount of time. It will also reveal cracks or gaps in the floors or walls, basically helping you find the safest route or a secret passage here or there. So we escape Borgin and Burkes and make our way out to Diagon Alley, and finally meet back with Mrs. Weasley and Ginny. You grab your books that allow you to charge your spells, and find yourself landed in a fetch quest for Ginny, who has lost all of her new stuff. Her brass scales in the magical menagerie, her quill in Gambol and Japes, and the spellotape from the Leaky Cauldron, each area acting like its own dungeon with its own personal mechanics. Stealth platforming, purchasing items. Honestly, it's a great tutorial that's almost hidden in plain sight. So we get all our items and it's time to meet Lockhart. Honestly, my favourite character in this game. I don't know if it's just the voice or it's just the way the voice actor worked the character, but it is so close to matching Kenneth Branagh's energy from the movie. We also get another encounter with the Malfoys, and bloody hell this scene annoys me. So Lockhart chews your ear off and Ron informs you that you've missed the train, as it's left 5 minutes ago. Seeing as Ginny and the Malfoys only left 15 seconds ago, and your defense against the dark arts teacher is still talking to you, I suppose you can just catch a ride with him and, nope, hijack a flying car and crash into a big ass tree it is then. The Whomping Willow is something I won't go into too much detail in. As well, the yellow flashing for the lightning effects is a bit too much for my epileptic brain to handle, and I will say, be very careful with this if you are a gamer with epilepsy. This entire level can be very dangerous, which is a real shame because this is the only moment in the game that has this. Everything else is just fine. As the level ends, the tree is defeated, the lightning instantly stops, and you are caught by Snape, who gives you a warning. I think. Like, the fate of the Wizarding World hangs on how many muggles witness the car, but next time I see you in trouble, I'll take house points. Maybe. Like I've said, you're Harry frickin' Potter. You get away with everything. So you get into the dorm room, meet Fred and George, who play the role of your merchants, who will sell you every item they can for Bertie Bott's every flavoured beans, and we call it a day. And if you keep wondering why I keep saying that, it is because this game has a day and night cycle, in the lines of you do schoolwork and Quidditch by day with some minor plot points, and you advance the Chamber of Secrets story by night. Beauty of this is it's practically almost open world and sandboxy. You can explore all of the castle and grounds, do side quests and puzzles, and in Harry Potter fashion, fly around on your broomstick. Now in order to fly, we need our flying lesson, and it's again Superman 64. At least controlling Harry feels smooth. Despite what the footage showing may contrast, it's honestly some of the best flying mechanics in a game there is. So after a hard first day, Ron's off to bed, giving you the time to either do some exploring or call it a day yourself. When you call it a day, the house points all get tallied, and we move on to night 1, which has you going to find a way to free Neville, who has managed to find himself stuck behind a tapestry in a very Neville manner.
Why is it always me?
So we make our way to the library and... oh boy. Okay, so the stealth sections in this game can be excruciating. You get caught, you have a chance to escape, but if they land that Locomoto Mortis spell, you kiss those house points goodbye. I mean, the game literally stops taking them after a while, which means even EA knew that these were bad, and there's a few of them. But get past that and you get your bestiary, helping you deal with the critters you encounter. Now we have more stealth getting out of the castle and over to Herbology, where there's a spell book that teaches you Diffindo, the severing spell. We make our way back and...
oh no!
Nearly Headless Nick is petrified. The writing's on the wall and McGonagall sends you to Dumbledore, and we're already having issues with the pacing. Now this is one of the problems I have so much with the PlayStation 2 games. We've just gone from our first sight of the Chamber of Secrets to Harry being told he would have done better in Slytherin. This is way too early in the story. The only reason Harry's doubts started to get the better of him was because he may have been the heir of Slytherin. Right now, no one knows about this. Hell, no one even knows about the Chamber of Secrets. This pacing issue plagues the PS2 series, and oh shit, we forgot about Neville. Okay, so you get Neville out and Hermione goes to bed before you can even tell her about the chamber. Guess that ends the night then. So, a new day, a new lesson, defense against the dark arts, as we partake in the Expelliarmus challenge. The challenges are dungeons, and they utilize some of, if not all, the spells you have obtained. The first part has you sending charged flipendos to destroy some charmed cannonballs. Then you are lowering platforms by casting Defindo on some wrecking balls to plug up some lava pools. I don't know if that is exactly what they were, but rest in peace to those imps I threw in them, thinking that that was part of the puzzle. The next thing you know, you're now dodging the death traps from Dark Souls and running a gauntlet of flamethrowers, all leading to the final moment of reading that spellbook. Once you learn Expelliarmus, you are then thrown into a fight with a big, bad guardian gargoyle. Seriously, I think the school board needs a word with old Albus here. Really though, the boss isn't that hard. In fact, it teaches you how the spell works. It will send a spell out to you and then you reflect it back. After 2 or 3 hits, the gargoyle will try and aim around you and use the shockwave of the attack to do the damage. But you just move and reflect, think a bit of like tennis. Even more so after it goes below half health. This phase has the gargoyle reflect the spell back, making the spell larger. Once the gargoyle's down, congratulations, here's your 40 points for Gryffindor, and now you face Malfoy in a wizarding duel. Once more we're back to Wimbledon, but now you have to damage your opponent 5 times. This can be a little tricky to get used to, but it's a piece of piss once you do. After you beat Draco, he will use Serpent Sortia. Harry will speak to the snake and everyone becomes afraid of him because they didn't read the subtitles. So yes, now you are told that talking to snakes was Salazar Slytherin's shtick, and that you may be his great-great-great-great-grandson, but who cares about that? It's Quidditch practice!
Nice.
Honestly, I enjoy this minigame way too much. It's basically more of the Superman rings flying around, but going through them fills your boost, shown by the colour of your slipstream. Once you start sparkling, you can boost and hopefully get towards the snitch and try and catch it. You will have to try and dodge bludgers, which will slow you down, but yeah, it's a fun minigame. You now also unlock the Nimbus 2000, making your outdoor travels a breeze. But to where there is light, darkness ain't too far ahead, as that proper Git Draco Malfoy just called Hermione a mudblood, albeit off screen. So I guess it's off to our good old friend Hagrid's for a nice heart-to-heart. Nope, Hermione wants to go to bed. End the day. On to night 2, and Hermione wants us to scope out the library again, this time for a copy of Hogwarts History. Stealth. Yay. So once Metal Gear Potter slips past the disgusting amount of prefects, you slip through the portrait and we enter another challenge, which isn't a bad one, and I love the way it shows the craziness of Hogwarts, climbing ladders, scaling fine ledges just to get to the room with the bucket, and with a bit of help from Hedwig and some fine platforming, you get Hogwarts History and unlock a new room, where you fight a bookshelf using Flipendo to push it back until it trips and you win. Now use that block to get onto the bookshelf, dodge some wraiths, and now you have the Scourge spell, used to remove that green goo blocking the main door to the restricted annex. Once in there, you will have to mix Scourge with Lumos, removing gunk and avoiding the wraiths, pushing buttons to release the doors with Draco and the Crabgoyles popping up for duels every now and again. Hard part over, and you make your way back to Hermione to learn that the Chamber of Secrets was installed by Slytherin as a tool to help him keep his dream of a purebloods only Hogwarts intact by his heir. But never mind, all this pacing butchery has made Ron sleepy, so off to bed. On to day 3 and its transfiguration, thus the Aberforce challenge, and I love that Harry is just fed up with being called to start the challenges off.
Come forward, please.
Yes, Professor?
The Aberforce spellbook is located on the other side of this crawl space. Find it, and the spell will be yours. You must then return here to the classroom.
Yes, Professor.
Like, you can literally hear his soul ache when he realizes he's going into that crawl space. So you get Aberforce and now you can move these specific boulders. But enough about that, it's Quidditch time, and as you are Harry freaking Potter, you single-handedly thrash Hufflepuff so bad it completely saps Ron of all his strength, and he needs to go to bed at 3 PM in the afternoon. Bloody hell, is this Hogwarts or my old university? Night 3 and Hermione wants you to go to the girls' bathroom on the 2nd floor. That's right, it's Polyjuice Morphin time. And first things first, this is Nightmare Fuel. And this is brilliant. Remember how we hated the stealth missions? We still do, but now when you are caught, you are being punished as Goyle, removing Slytherin house points. So you can keep getting caught and destroy any chance of Slytherin claiming that house cup. Seriously though, this was one of the coolest air quotes cheats in the game. So you make your way down to the dungeon, find out Draco knows nothing about the Chamber of Secrets, and karma for taking all those house points away comes cracking you in the shins, as you now revert back into your regular self behind enemy lines. So yes, you stealth your way back to Hermione, come back with nothing but a broken controller, and oh well, good night. Okay, to keep things for time, we're going to speed through the day parts as nothing really happens here. The final spell challenge is Incendio. You clear that, you can set things on fire and deal damage to creatures that are weak to it. Then you have the match with Ravenclaw, making the final match between you and Slytherin. Ron goes to bed and we now find Riddle's diary, and he's the villain. Seriously, EA, that voice is way too arrogant and snarky to be anything but a bad guy.
Come on. The least Hogwarts can do is make sure the thing that killed that girl is slaughtered.
Anyway, we learn that Hagrid may be the killer and go to hear it from the half-giant's mouth. Too little too late as Lucius does the Cornelius Fudge line of sending Hagrid to Azkaban. Don't know if the chairman of the school board has that level of clearance, but yeah. We get the key, follow the spiders, and oh boy, he a big ol' beastie. Aragog's lair is a jumbled maze that requires you to incendio the anchor points of the spider's web. When all are ignited, you and the Spider Supreme will fall into a traditional boss area and a battle will commence. The fight is something. Like, it's not hard. The spider will either attempt to charge at you, spit at you, or do a ground pound, and you deal damage by hitting his underbelly with an incendio when he roars. There are also web lines that drop supplies after you use incendio on it. This drops health, beans, and balloons, which now in hindsight makes me feel that the fight is supposed to be tied around Aragog's blindness, using the balloons to bait the roar. However, I don't have a save file for that specific fight, so would have to replay the entire game again to test this, so we've just got to assume that's what the mechanic is about. Still, we've got to give EA credit here. If that is the case, it's a very clever mechanic, even if the boss is easy enough that it's not needed. So with Aragog defeated, the flying Ford Anglia makes an appearance, saves your potty wee Potter arse, and end of night. No recap of what we've just learned, no run off to bed, just you're done. Next morning though, you do recap everything to Hermione before the Quidditch finals with Slytherin. She realises something goes to the library as you go on to win that trophy, which is a nice touch. In the books, Gryffindor hardly get to the final. Either Harry is out of action and the team lose, or it's cancelled entirely. But here you are actively given the trophy, with Wood, Harry, and a rando Gryffindor prefect who's just happy to be there, celebrating. But celebrations have to wait. Hermione wasn't at the match. Maybe something bad happened to her on the way to the library.
I'm off to bed.
So, we've come to the final night. Ron tells us Ginny is missing and Hermione has been petrified. We work out that the Chamber of Secrets holds a basilisk, an ancient beast capable of killing with a mere look, and that the beast has been using the plumbing to get around. So it's off to the 2nd floor to Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. No Lockhart though, so I assume in this universe Lockhart just does a runner and is spared the memory wipe. Now once more, the Chamber of Secrets has been opened, and it looks very much like the movie setting. But to be fair, that looked awesome, so why not? Ginny is out for the count and Tom Riddle reveals that he is the heir of Slytherin, using Ginny to do his bidding until he becomes real once more. Oh yeah, and he's Voldemort. So the basilisk is called, Fawkes swoops in and drops the sword of Gryffindor and blinds the basilisk, bringing in the boss fight. And yeah, it's an odd one. You basically pick up the sword and that becomes your wand, with all the spells swapped out for its attack. The basilisk itself will slip in and out of the pipelines and you have to time your attack just right to hit the diamond target on their neck. with every hit placing the sword in a new area, and her pace will quicken. Once it's defeated, the basilisk will fall tooth first onto Riddle's diary, instantly destroying him. At least he goes out with dignity, right? Ginny comes 2, Gryffindor win the cup, and...
As for Harry, well, once again, he truly was the boy who lived.
So yeah, that was the PS2 version, and I have to say, this game still holds up. The day and night cycle have their problems, because the night cycle is dedicated to story and the day is for schoolwork. There isn't much real plot advancement. In the day, when you do get something, it has to be brushed aside until you end the morning, and pacing becomes an issue. But yeah, it's still amazing, though I would say find a fat PS2 that works. The disc itself is a blue disc, and the laser of the more modern PS2s can struggle to read it. Hell, I had to do some fancy tape DIY with mine, and it still crashed on me a few times. Now the PC version is an interesting game, in fact, might even be the best incarnation. Graphics wise, it isn't anything special. The PS2 has better models, but I think that's because EA's budget went into that version. So the PC reuses a lot of its previous assets. But hey, they did some tweaking and got the mouths to move, even though everyone still looks soulless and dead-eyed. Hell, I don't know if they are actually blinking or if the model is just collapsing the eye in on itself. But effort is effort. Now the most important thing about this game is that story pacing. And it is glorious. Because the game isn't a complete sandbox style like the PS2 version, it gets a more structured story, with as much detail as it can get, and any parts that they couldn't animate are narrated by Stephen Fry, which really helps this game. Sure, there are still bits that don't happen, there's no Death Day celebration, Ron's wand never seems to actually get broken during the crash into the Whomping Willow, but the key points are practically there. Mrs. Norris being petrified instead of nearly headless Nick, Lockhart getting obliviated, which is even funnier when you remember Ron's wand wasn't damaged, so it makes him look even more like a dumbass. Even the Polyjuice potion actually took time to get the ingredients and make over the course of the game instead of just being ready to use in a day. Really good stuff, though some bits still look goofy. Hagrid getting sent to Azkaban is always going to be dumb.
Of course, if anyone wanted to find out some stuff, all they'd have to do would be to follow the spiders. That'd lead him, right?
Why would he say this? Like, of course we know why Hagrid says this. In the books he's given Harry a hint. But in the games he doesn't even know Harry is there. They are hiding. The gameplay is just fluid. They took what Philosopher's Stone did and just improved upon it, replacing that Trace the Spell icon game with a simple rhythm game using the arrow keys, keeping it simple yet effective. They focus a lot on challenges with unique puzzles that hide some form of collectibles to reward your brain power. And while some of the challenge sequences make little sense, like going all the way around the frickin' Hogwarts gardens to steal Goyle's hair, which just takes too long, they're all done with that snappy platform pacing the PC versions are known for. The boss fights are pretty good too. The duel with Draco is still a cast spell then play tennis, but you have a bit more tactics. You can't jump in this fight, so the jump button cycles through 3 different dueling spells. Aragog plays similar to the PS2 version at the start, sever the anchor points, but the second phase, when you actually fight the spider, is a lot simpler. Just Rictusempra his underbelly when he rears up and dodge everything else. Now the Chamber of Secrets itself is worth a mention. It takes everything you learn from the game and puts it to work. Hell, it even manages to throw an Indiana Jones giant ball chase in near the end. Then the fight with the Basilisk keeps that simple yet fun aspect of the boss fights in this game. At first you are firing your sword attacks at the Basilisk, still inside the statue. Only in the final phase did that thing become a giant game of whack-a-mole, bursting out the grids on the floor, dodging your attacks. The only way to hurt it is to cast just as she begins her attack. Then once she's dead, we get this. Just wow. That's like casting the ring into Mordor level of dramatic slow-mo. And I fucking love this version. Now the PS1 version is probably the weaker of the three. There isn't anything wrong with it, hell it builds upon the first game quite well. The story is once again narrated by Stephen Fry, but instead of the lovely hand-drawn artwork in the first game, we get cutscene renders with the next generation models. Which poses the question, like, if the PS1 version has shots of the Mrs. Norris petrification, why did next gen cut that out? Or was that the reason? EA was scared the PS1 version would be called out for reusing the next generation cutscenes, so opted to cut and switch things around. Now, if you loved the minigames in the Philosopher's Stone on PS1, you will enjoy this game, as there's a bucket load, though it really does reuse a lot of them, and hell, it's again reusing a lot of the original's assets here. But we get a lot of things in this version we don't get in the others. The dialogue is great, maybe the best of the three, with a lot of the back and forth between Harry, Ron and Hermione, especially when Lockhart is involved.
Professor Lockhart is probably the bravest wizard who's ever lived. Is that why you've marked all Lockhart's lesson with little hearts on your timetable?
Each game must have different voice directors or something. We get the Death Day party and a Peeves boss fight, even though it's basically the troll fight from the first one, only now with food instead of plumbing. Ron slugging himself, which has you trying to keep up as he runs to Hagrid's, and to be fair, it's the only version where Harry actually stabs Tom Riddle's diary with the fang. And the final boss fight itself isn't that bad either. It mixes both the PC and PS2 versions. You cast Flipendo at the Basilisk until Fawkes drops the sorting hat, giving you the Sword of Gryffindor. Then you use the sword to redirect the Basilisk's attack into its own fang, which, yeah, some decent stuff. But that's the thing I love about these games. Not one single version plays the same. It's something rarely seen to have three completely unique experiences with the same title. Hell, I don't talk about them since I don't own them and have never played them, but the handheld versions of the franchise are turn-based RPGs, and it's mind-blowing. Still, if I had to pick a winner of the best game, I would say the PC version. But there is one issue. You can't technically play it. It's not about the specs or anything, hell I think an old Windows XP laptop would get the job done, and price-wise they're reasonably cheap to find. It's the fact that the game is not on Steam, so you have to find a disc version. And from what I can tell, most modern PCs don't have CD drives. Hell, mine is broke, so I had to use my parents' old computer to slap the game onto USB sticks. But there's complications there. The biggest one is it doesn't count as a disc, so the game won't start. And then there's EA's obsolete security. Both this and Philosopher's Stone security are not compatible with Windows 10, so even if you could boot the disc up, it would do the same as if you had no game. So you would have to sail the internet sea and find a version of the game where that security is removed, which also counts as the game itself. A lot of hassle, even for a good game. The PS2 game costs around the same price, and all you need is a PS2 and component cables. And it's still a good quality experience, but if you are willing to put that work in, the PC version will give you hours of enjoyment. And if you have enjoyed this video and want to see the series continue, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, flipendo that bell thingy, and follow me on the Twitch and Twitters. Also, what was your favourite part of the game? Let me know in the comment section below. And finally, tune in next time as we throw some quaffles and catch that snitch in the Quidditch World Cup. But until that day, this has been Techno Odin. Stay safe, smash bosses, and mischief managed.